Hi there, this is NekitaNet and welcome to this episode of Office Hours. We're slightly overexposed, but I've got something very extremely secret and special to share. Well, it's not quite secret, but I guess most people won't know about this, so, well, it's time to share. Now, currently I'm using a C920 Logitech webcam to record this via OBS directly to YouTube, and unfortunately the neighbors are, well, a loud bunch at the moment, so we'll have to muddle through this all. But the C920 is attached to a Linux-based computer and yet gets this quality level you're seeing right now. It's very simple to set up, but you need to know how. And I'm going to share this little secret today with you in this video. Got another version of this way of doing it, which produces even higher quality video. But I'm not going to share that with you. No. Sorry, some secrets are there to remain just that. So, let's set up the second screen with a little bit of information, which takes unfortunately a little while to, to render and view properly because of all the, video interfaces. I have had to add 2 seconds delay to the audio and accordingly to other video sources to sync them up properly. And this will most likely be the best synced live stream video on NekitaNet in a long time, because I finally tweaked it and tuned it to that extent. So, a preamble to this entire process is that you'll have to use, right, at least the same stuff I've used, or better, for as long as it works. Sometimes stuff does break, huh? But currently it works with these versions. So I'm using Ubuntu server 16.04 with Ubuntu desktop installed upon it. Ubuntu, Lubuntu, Ubuntu, Ubuntu 16.04 LTS should all work. As long as you've got, right, let's go over the list. This is also in the description, but let's go over the list. You've got a kernel from the 4.4 branch. I'm using a low latency kernel, but I'm guessing, I'm hoping the generic version will work as well, as best as this does. But FFmpeg version 2.8.11, or newer I would say. The V4L2 loopback, so that's Video for Linux loopback, kernel module, version 0.9.1, and I've had issues with earlier versions, so at least, but more specifically, most likely, this will work with version 0.9.1. And very important, extremely important, non-negotiable, willing to accept 24 frames per second. Now, and this is saying this extremely strictly, because there's a very important reason for that. This Logitech C920 under Linux, under these circumstances, as I've just described, has an issue. Yes, it does. And that issue is very simple. Some of the frames it uses to set automatic stuff. So you've got white balance, you've got auto exposure, and you've got auto focus. Now, you can turn off auto focus, auto white balance, and auto exposure, and still you'll run into issues. Trust me, I've had this camera for a number of years. Did I? Do I? Yes, I do. And I've experimented profusely, persistently over those years with this thing. And you all know what a C920 looks like from Logitech. You can look it up on Google, images.google.com. Just type in Logitech space C920, that camera we're talking about now. Still has issues even if you turn off all the automatic stuff. I've run into it. In reality, although it states on the package it's a 30 frame per second webcam, it really isn't. My opinion, my humble opinion after hours upon hours upon hours of testing states it's not a 30 frames per second webcam. Doesn't do PAL, so 25 frames per second, which I would like. No, it does 24 frames per second well. As you can see right now, because I'm using this camera. If I had a mirror handy, I would show you. But currently I'm doing 24 frames per second very nicely. And the fun thing is I'm using the h264 codecs from the ASICs that's included, built into this Logitech C920. Right? You want that because you want at least this quality level as I'm showing you now. You can get better, but it's a big hassle. Now, if you've got the prerequisites, including the camera, including a USB port that supports a fairly high bit rate, USB 2, USB 3, not a bad way. So with bad chips, no, it works all properly and nice. And you can get this quality level I'm showing you right now. So let's switch over and show you what you need to do on the command line. But first, let's set something up quite quickly, because you do need to have a proper version of FFmpeg to do this. Because I've tried exactly this in the past and it didn't work. I don't know how long ago or how much it was exactly the same, but we need to check that you've got the proper version of FFmpeg and you need to know how to do that. So open a command line, the console, and type in FFmpeg space, a little line, and then version. And at the top you can see right here, FFmpeg version 2.8.11. It works very nicely with this version, right? Now, do you have the prerequisites ready? Because I'm going to show you which commands you need to use. Also, ensure that you've rebooted the computer, or even better, turned off the computer. In all my testing, I have noticed that this C920, if it receives even a tinkling of power, saves some settings which will hamper what we're going to do. So unplug it even, and replug it. Unplug it, turn off the computer, replug it, turn the computer on. Ensure that that thing lost power. Ensure that you've got a clean install. Right? So let's switch and go over the commands you need to use. Okay, step 1, as has been done on Ubuntu 16.04, right? I've installed Ubuntu 16.04 LTS, the server edition, and put Ubuntu on it, the Ubuntu desktop. Now, open the command line, type in sudo apt-get update. Ensure that you've got an updated system, just to be sure, do it again with that command. Second command is sudo apt-get install v4l2 video for Linux to loopback utils. Because you'll create, for this example at least, a loopback device, a video loopback device, a dummy video webcam on your computer, which you can load into any number of programs. Think of OBS, think of Skype, Cheese even. Yes, there's a program called Cheese. But you need to install that, and sudo apt-get install v4l2 loopback utils should install at least 3 applications or 3 packages Debian repository packages from Ubuntu. The v4l2 loopback utils, the v4l loopback DKMS, KDMS, day. I'm Dutch and I'm dyslexic, so sometimes I switch letters around. But the third one should be the v4l2 loopback sources, because you'll need to compile these, because this is a kernel module you'll need to install, at least for this setup as I'm showing you right now. This will take a little while, and etc, etc, etc. But once it's done, once it's successfully installed, it has compiled some stuff, it's done some stuff, after that, sudo apt-get clean, and do a reboot. If you're finicky like me, do even power down instead of a reboot. And then reboot the computer, and if you've done the reboot command, it will most likely, hopefully, reboot itself automatically. Otherwise, you do need to power it on. Right? Okay. Step 2. With a caveat, with a note, with a little remark. Change the video 0 and video 10 devices as needed. We'll talk about that. But after this, you need to load that kernel module, the v4l2 loopback device, the kernel module. You need to load that. So, go back to the command line, go back to that console window and do sudo modprobe v4l2 loopback space video, little r, you know, nr for number, and then is 10. You can't change this, but you need to change it accordingly in the next command we'll use, right? Now, I've put in a card label. I've never seen it show up anywhere, but I put it in here because you can load it into, well, the kernel module when you do a modprobe, so I did. So I set the card label to C920 with a little line and an h264, just to note that this is an h264, well, dummy video device, or at least intended for that. Right? Press enter, wait a while, see it succeed, hopefully at least, and then you need to run the FFmpeg command. So, you do that as user, that's fine. I do that as user, right? Not as root, not as a sudo, or sudo root, no, just as user. FFmpeg, and you set the screen size. I set it to 1920 by 1080, which is the maximum output resolution for h264 encoded video from the ASICs from your Logitech C920. So, the next one is very important. Set the rate 24, not 30. Trust me, you'll run into issues. I've done it. I've ran into issues, had to reboot the computer, unplug the USB, because sometimes even the device goes into a semi-bricked state. This wonderful webcam has issues. It has them. Trust me, I know. So, the R denotes the rate, 24. Then set the input format to YUYV422. We'll get back to that, but let me very quickly do something, because I have too much light, and hopefully that helps a little bit, because I'm overexposed. But here we are. Now, this device with that super secret script I use to get even higher quality out of this camera, it denotes that this camera outputs not a 422 signal, but a 420 signal, and there's a quality difference. You can't get that with this command, not as it's written here, but you do need to put in an input format, otherwise you'll most likely, as I've seen at least, get errors. So input format YUYV V422. And you need to set the F format. It isn't that, it's something else. Doesn't really matter. But set that to video for Linux 2, V4L2. Then you need to set the input, hear me properly, the input format for the codecs. So, vcodec h264. That will ensure that you get that h264 from the ASICs from within the Logitech C920. Then the input device, which is in my case dev video 0. Now this might be different for your computer or your laptop or however you want to set it up. Change it accordingly. Check which device it is and then change it accordingly, because otherwise this won't work. Now we need to output the signal which we've built up with this command, right? Because now we have an h264 signal and we need to convert it to something that the loopback device can understand, which is a raw video signal, right? Understand this? You get from your camera an h264 signal as we've defined it, because we've defined it. This doesn't work standard. You need to really do it this way. But that h264 signal from the camera over the USB into FFmpeg needs to be a raw output. That's automatically denoted by the next F with V4L2. But you need to set the pixel format for the output stream, for the output to that virtual device, that dummy video device, that loopback device. So set it to with pixel FMT or PIX, little line FMT to YU YV422, and then set it right with the V4L2 to device 10, or if you've changed it here and there's no duplicate and that worked perfectly and the modprobe worked properly, change it to whatever you changed it to. If you use this and your C920 is there on where is it? Device dev video 0. This should all work quite nicely. Let's change this up again. Now, if you've done this, if this worked, you'll see the following when you press enter. Right? This is the command, as you can see right here on the top line. Yes, it's small print. Use your 1080 monitor to do this, otherwise you won't really read it properly, or won't be able to at least. But here you go. Use this command. It's shown a lot of built-in stuff of FFmpeg, and then video for Linux 2, almost said 2, as is 2 in Dutch, from dev video 0. Duration not available, start, yes. Bitrate not available. Now, the type of stream it is outputting, so the h264 signal is an h264 constrained baseline with a YUVJ420p PC. As you can see, this throws a little error, or at least a little warning from the SW scaler. Doesn't really matter at the moment unless you're familiar with FFmpeg or AV conf, or whatever, GStreamer even. There's a scaler built in. We don't use it, but this throws an error. In all their wisdom, Logitech, yes, and I'm exaggerating a little bit, used a non-standard or a less used pixel format for the h264 encoder within this webcam. Can't help it, but that means you can't directly output the video stream to YouTube. Otherwise, if this was changeable and known about to be changeable, or another pixel format, you would be able to stream with a simple copy. So you could use an ancient computer with proper speed, of course, but an ancient computer with 1 or 2 cores, basically copy out the h264 stream and directly copy it over to YouTube. It's not compatible. I haven't gotten it compatible, unfortunately. But I'm going to reseat myself a little bit, but here you see 16 by 9, 24 frames per second, and you get YU, Y2, YU, YV 422 stream from this thing. Somehow this version of FFmpeg is able to handle this weirdness. Non-conforming, non-standard pixel format is right interpretable by this version of FFmpeg. And the stream mapping goes stream 00 to 00 on the output, right, from h264 native to raw video native. And as you can see, a steady 24 frames per second. And I've seen now 34,000 going to 35,000 frames. And I'm betting I'm still in sync with my voice. This is a stable way of doing it. My super secret script isn't as stable. But use this, right? It's working. You're seeing me. Let's switch this. And here we are. Right? Latency of audio, video. So I switched to Zoom. Getting used to this wonderful new setup. But how's the quality? I think it's good. It isn't 8 megabits per second, that's for sure. I'm betting, going by this, it's a variable bitrate. I'm betting. Unsure though. But there's a quality level of 2 to 31. Hasn't got a proper bitrate set to it. But I'm betting this is a variable bitrate, which means the ASICs can basically try to do within a set time frame, a time slice one could say, a certain number of operations on a single frame and then just put it out. And whatever the bitrate is that is needed for that single frame. Okay, this is how this works. This is how you get this type of image. As you can see, the quality is good enough, but more especially, it's better than using the MJPEG, in my opinion at least. MJPEG and Emotion JPEG, which you can also output, introduces a number of issues. And if you're familiar with MJPEG, you know what they are. I won't repeat them. The raw output can't be done at 24 frames per second by my testing. USB 2 doesn't have the required bandwidth, well, from this device at least, to output it properly. So you can only do lesser sizes, so 1920, 1080 by 1080, you can't do that at a high frame rate, or you can do the 920 by 1080 at a very low frame rate. And we didn't pay 90, 100 or even perhaps more euros or dollars for a camera not to get the h264 out. So let's switch this back quite quickly. And this is the command. These are the commands you'll need on a clean install to get this working. Once again, you can load this into Skype, you can load this into your OBS. There is a latency, I won't deny that. The h264, that's my dyslexia again, encoding does take a little bit of, well, made a little boo-boo on the live stream yet again, but it does take a little bit of time. So on my system it's about 500 milliseconds. Delay your audio therefore for 500 milliseconds. Except that there are limitations with this camera. It's not a professional setup, although it is being sold as a professional quote-unquote gaming setup, video broadcasting setup, stuff like that. Low latency and such. At a high quality 1920 by 1080. It's a consumer product. It is a very nice consumer product. And going by all this, what you're seeing right now at 24 frames per second, it's quite acceptable. I would have liked an option for 25 frames per second. I won't lie. I also would have liked to know if it is possible at all, and if it is, how it's possible to add more options via FFmpeg to the camera. My other script, which does better quality, allows me to set a number of parameters, that's proper English, within the camera. I can't do that here. I don't have control over the proper bitrate. I don't have control over the quality level, the Q setting, you know, the one we just saw, which goes from something to something. Let's take a quick gander at that. From 2 to 31. You can create a better, well, video signal by changing stuff in that as well. I don't know how to do that with this command, but this is the most simple way of setting up your C920 under Linux, under the conditions I specified, and get the h264 signal out of there and into a usable format. This way of doing it allows the camera to better be itself by being forced, in some regards at least, by being forced to work around the bandwidth issues of USB. And with my other script, I've seen huge amounts of data being transferred. Because of course everything gets back to a raw image for further processing by different applications. So get yourself the video for Linux loopback kernel module, do the install, work with this entire thing, and then enjoy, because you can get proper stuff in 2017 with a simple command. 2 lines of console commands. And the fun thing is, and I'll check that quite quickly. So it takes to decode the signal, and let's show you that. It takes 53%, let's say 54% of a single core on a 2.8 gigahertz machine. So it takes about 1.5 gigahertz of computing capacity to use FFmpeg to get the signal from your webcam into the dummy device. Now what you do after that, whatever signal processing you do after that, that's up to you. I'm not commenting because OBS currently is using almost 2 complete cores to stream this, and 8 megabits at 24 frames per second. Right? Could I do 48 frames per second to YouTube? I'm unsure. It's not a real standard. Right? Is it? Well, I don't know. 25 frames is PAL. NTSC is 24. Right? The movie standard. High definition, high frame rate is 50 frames per second. So perhaps 48 frames per second. Well, let me be blunt. You can't do the YouTube standard of 30 frames per second. Or 60 frames per second. Doesn't work with this camera. Learn to live with it. You've spent the money, perhaps you've even bought multiples. So, you know, for your nice studio setup. And got very annoyed and bored and annoyed again by not getting this type of quality. Okay, for 1.8 gigahertz on a i7 920, I get the signal at this quality into a dummy device and I can use it as I see fit. As it were a normal video camera, well, a normal webcam attached to my computer. But then at this bitrate, at this quality level, as you see right here, I'm content. And I hope this video, which is long-winded by now, helps you out immensely. I started the stream as a private stream, unfortunately. This is the second go at this stream, at this video. Don't try above 24 frames per second. It's not worth it. You'll go bonkers, you'll go mad. You'll want to return the camera, and if you can't, you want to destroy it. If your inclination is as such. But for most, even for most streamers, this level of quality is more than enough. I'm guessing it's around 3.5 megabits per second. That's only a guess though. I don't know for sure, but well, I'm going to take a gander at this and just open it up a little bit. Yeah, 3.5. Frame rate should be 48. Well, here I go. 24 frames per second. And it's nice. It's wonderful. I've got auto focus on. I've got auto white balance on. Yes, I've enabled manual control of exposure. I've got a wonderful window, which I like to show off. Well, not show off. It's just how the home is configured, right? The home office. But it's a nice view. I like my window to be semi-transparent, just so I can always look out and you're enjoying and riding along with this view. So I need to manually expose. That's fine. But with 20 frames, pardon me, 24 frames per second, those intermediate frames that make up the 30, those are used for the automatic stuff. That's fine. Unfortunately, it's not 25 frames per second, so you could up it to, you know, 50 with some little help, and you could do gaming at 50 and just duplicate frames automatically in OBS. I'm going beyond the scope of this video now. But there's a lot of stuff that can be done. But this quality level, leave a comment, do a thumbs up if you like it. I've been at this for 2 years with this damn camera, with the C920, and it finally works. Without issue, without hassle. And if after 34 minutes this video is still synced to the audio, I am content. I'm betting I'll use this way of doing it instead of my super secret script, which performs in quality level per frame better. There's jitter, there's variance, and you in reality really don't want that. So this is NekitaNet saying, I hope you found this video interesting. Like or dislike this video at your pleasure, of course. Subscribe to the channel, and if you do subscribe to the channel, please click the bell and tick the box so you get updates from this channel. That's very important because I make these videos for you guys. This is a very informative video, hopefully for a number of people who weren't able to use their C920, their Logitech C920, or other versions, the C922 and C930E, I think, unsure, and perhaps even the B920 to their fullest extent, because yes, I think all those have about the same, well, they should be able to put out h264 codecs encoded video. So I'm going to end scene and say thanks for watching and enjoy.